Welcome to our countdown of the top 10 greatest empire builders in history. These leaders not only expanded their territories, but also left lasting legacies that shape the world as we know it. When we gaze back through the mists of time, we see figures who, through ambition, intellect, and often sheer force of will, redrew maps, forged nations, and influenced the very trajectory of human civilization. These weren't just rulers, they were cosmic forces in their own right, their actions creating ripples that have traveled across centuries, touching our lives in ways we might not even realize. From the dusty plains of ancient Persia to the heart of Europe, their stories are etched into the annals of our collective past. Defining greatness in an emperor is a complex endeavor, isn't it? Is it measured by the sheer scale of conquered lands, the number of battles won, or the terror they struck into the hearts of their enemies? Or perhaps it's found in the enduring systems of governance they established, the cultural renaissances they fostered, or the philosophical shifts they inspired. Here we'll explore a tapestry of leaders whose greatness manifests in diverse forms, some through military prowess that was almost superhuman, others through visionary reforms that provided stability and progress for millions. The challenge, of course, is selecting just 10 from millennia of human history, a history rich with powerful figures. So prepare yourselves for a journey across continents and centuries. We'll delve into the lives, the conquests, the innovations, and the enduring legacies of these monumental figures. We'll examine not just what they did, but their actions resonated so profoundly, and how their empires, though many have long since crumbled to dust, laid the very foundations upon which our modern world is built. It's a story of power, of vision, of human endeavor at its most ambitious and at times its most formidable. Let's begin our exploration into the lives of these architects of history. Our first titan of history is none other than Alexander the Great. Born into the Macedonian royal house, he inherited not just a kingdom from his father, Philip II, but a meticulously crafted military machine and an audacious dream, the conquest of the vast Persian Empire. Tutored by Aristotle himself, Alexander was a potent mixture of warrior king and keen intellect. His ambition wasn't just a flicker, it was a raging inferno, a desire to push the boundaries of the known world to see what lay beyond the horizon. He ascended to the throne at the tender age of 20, a mere youth, yet he possessed a vision that would soon stretch across continents, fundamentally altering the geopolitical landscape of his era. His campaigns began with a force that seemed almost divinely inspired. He crossed the Hellespont into Asia Minor, and with a series of stunning victories, Granicus, Issus, Gaugamela, he systematically dismantled the Achaemenid Persian Empire, an entity that had dominated the Near East for centuries. Darius III, the great king of Persia, found himself outmaneuvered and outfought at every turn by Alexander's tactical genius and the ferocity of his Macedonian phalanxes and companion cavalry. It wasn't just about winning battles. Alexander understood the psychological dimension of warfare, the art of leadership, inspiring unwavering loyalty in his men as they marched into the heart of an ancient and powerful foe. But Alexander's gaze was ever eastward. After securing Persia, Egypt, where he was hailed as a liberator, and founded the legendary city of Alexandria in Mesopotamia, his relentless drive pushed his armies further into the mysterious lands of Bactria, Sogdia, and ultimately the Indian subcontinent. He faced new challenges: formidable war elephants, unfamiliar terrain, and the growing weariness of his own troops who had marched thousands of miles from their homes. The battle against King Porus at the Hydaspes River was a testament to his adaptability, but it also marked a turning point. His men, longing for home, finally persuaded him to turn back, though his dreams of further conquest remained. Perhaps Alexander's most enduring legacy, beyond the sheer scale of his empire, was the dissemination of Hellenistic culture. As his armies marched, they brought with them the Greek language, art, philosophy, and science. New cities, many named Alexandria, became vibrant centers of this fusion culture, blending Greek traditions with local customs. This Hellenistic world, stretching from Greece to India, fostered an unprecedented exchange of ideas and innovations. Think of it as a cultural supernova, its light illuminating diverse civilizations, creating a shared intellectual and artistic heritage that would influence Rome and through it the West for centuries to come. Tragically, Alexander's life was cut short. He died in Babylon at the age of 32, his vast empire, built on personal genius and loyalty, quickly fracturing among his generals, the Diadochi. Yet the world he created did not vanish. The Hellenistic kingdoms continued to flourish for generations, and the legend of Alexander himself, the undefeated conqueror, the philosopher king, the youth who dared to grasp the world, became an archetype, inspiring countless would-be emperors and adventurers throughout history. His impact was so profound that it's almost impossible to imagine the subsequent course of Western and Middle Eastern history without him. From the sun-drenched lands of the Hellenistic world, we journey centuries forward and thousands of miles east to the harsh, wind-swept steppes of Mongolia. Here, a man named Temujin, born into a world of brutal tribal warfare, poverty, and constant struggle, would rise to become Genghis Khan, the founder of the largest contiguous land empire in history. His early life was a crucible, forging in him an indomitable will, a keen understanding of human nature, and a ruthless pragmatism. He experienced betrayal, enslavement, and the loss of his father at a young age, experiences that would shape his approach to leadership and conquest, teaching him the vital importance of loyalty and unity. The unification of the disparate and fiercely independent Mongol tribes was a monumental achievement in itself. Through a combination of diplomacy, strategic alliances, and relentless military campaigns, Temujin brought these warring factions under a single banner. In 1206, at a great assembly known as a Kurultai, he was proclaimed Genghis Khan, the universal ruler. He then set about transforming Mongol society, creating a disciplined and highly effective military machine. His innovations were revolutionary: a meritocratic system of promotion, sophisticated cavalry tactics emphasizing mobility and archery, the strategic use of intelligence and psychological warfare, and an unparalleled logistical capability that allowed his armies to campaign across vast distances. With Mongolia unified, Genghis Khan turned his gaze outward. His conquests began with the Tangut kingdom of Xixia and the Jurchen Jin dynasty in northern China, then swept westwards across Central Asia, devastating powerful states like the Khwarezmian Empire. The Mongol invasions were often characterized by their speed, brutality, and terrifying efficiency. Cities that resisted faced utter destruction, a deliberate tactic to discourage opposition. Yet it wasn't just mindless slaughter. It was calculated, strategic, aimed at breaking the enemy's will to fight and securing resources for his burgeoning empire. The scale of his conquest was, quite simply, staggering, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Caspian Sea. Beyond the battlefield, Genghis Khan was also an organizer and a legislator. He commissioned the creation of a written script for the Mongolian language and established the Yasa, a secret written code of law that governed everything from military discipline to social behavior and property rights. While its exact contents are debated by historians, its impact in unifying the diverse peoples within his empire was significant. Furthermore, under Mongol rule, the Silk Road, the ancient network of trade routes connecting east and west, was revitalized and secured. The Pax Mongolica, or Mongol Peace, facilitated an unprecedented flow of goods, ideas, technologies, and even diseases across Eurasia. Genghis Khan died in 1227 during a campaign against the Xixia. His empire, however, did not die with him. He had laid the foundations for a system of succession, and his sons and grandsons, like Ogadai, Kublai, and Hulagu, would continue to expand Mongol dominion, reaching into Europe, the Middle East, and completing the conquest of China. Genghis Khan's legacy is undeniably complex, a figure of terror and destruction for those who stood in his path, yet also a unifier, a brilliant military strategist, and a catalyst for profound global interconnectedness. He reshaped the world map and the course of history in ways few individuals ever have. We now leap forward to late 18th century Europe, a continent ablaze with revolutionary fervor. Out of the chaos and upheaval of the French Revolution emerged a figure of extraordinary military genius and boundless ambition, Napoleon Bonaparte. Born in Corsica, a young man of relatively humble origins, Napoleon's rise was meteoric, fueled by his exceptional talent as an artillerist and strategist and his uncanny ability to inspire fanatical devotion in his soldiers. His early campaigns in Italy and Egypt showcased his innovative tactics and his audacious leadership, quickly making him a national hero in France, a nation desperately seeking stability and glory after years of internal turmoil. The political landscape of revolutionary France was a treacherous one, but Napoleon navigated it with cunning and decisiveness. In 1799, through the coup of 18 Brumaire, he seized power, becoming first consul and effectively the ruler of France. By 1804, he had crowned himself Emperor of the French, signaling a new era of French dominance in Europe. His military campaigns during this period are legendary. Austerlitz, Jena, Auerstedt, Wagram battles where he consistently outmaneuvered and crushed the combined forces of Europe's old monarchies. He redrew the map of Europe, placing his relatives and marshals on the thrones of conquered nations, creating a vast French-controlled empire. But Napoleon was more than just a military conqueror. He was also a profound reformer. His most lasting achievement is arguably the Napoleonic Code, a comprehensive legal framework that enshrined principles of equality before the law, religious tolerance, and the abolition of feudalism. This code not only reformed French law, but was adopted in various forms by many other countries, influencing legal systems worldwide. He centralized the French state, reformed the education system, established the Bank of France, and initiated numerous public works projects. He sought to create an efficient modern state capable of supporting his imperial ambitions. However, the zenith of Napoleon's power also contained the seeds of his downfall. His relentless pursuit of continental dominance, exemplified by the Continental System, an attempt to blockade Britain, led to widespread resentment and resistance. The costly and brutal Peninsular War in Spain drained French resources and manpower, while his disastrous invasion of Russia in 1812, where the Grande Armée was decimated by the harsh winter and Russian tactics, marked the beginning of the end. The nations of Europe, learning from their past defeats, formed new coalitions against him, fueled by a rising tide of nationalism that, ironically, his own actions had helped to inspire. Defeated at Leipzig in the Battle of Nations, Napoleon was forced to abdicate and exiled to the island of Elba. His escape and the subsequent 100 days, a brief, dramatic return to power, culminated in his final defeat at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Exiled once more, this time to the remote island of St. Helena, he died in 1821. Yet Napoleon's legacy is immense and multifaceted. He spread many of the ideals of the French Revolution across Europe, inadvertently sowed the seeds of modern nationalism, and his military strategies are still studied today. He remains a figure of fascination, a colossus who bestrode Europe and left an indelible mark on its history. Let's rewind the clock and travel back to ancient China, to a period of intense internal conflict known as the Warring States period. For centuries, various kingdoms had vied for supremacy, a time of constant warfare, but also of profound philosophical ferment. From this crucible of chaos emerged the state of Qin and its ambitious ruler, Yingzheng. Guided by the principles of legalism, a philosophy that emphasized strict laws and harsh punishments to achieve order and control, Yingzheng embarked on a ruthless campaign to conquer his rivals and unify all under heaven, or Tianxia, as the Chinese world was known. The military campaigns of Qin were relentless and brutal, but ultimately successful. One by one, the other 6 major states, Han, Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, and Qi, fell to Qin's armies. By 221 BCE, Yingzheng had achieved what no one before him had managed, the complete unification of China. He then proclaimed himself Qin Shi Huangdi, meaning the first sovereign emperor of Qin. This wasn't just a change in title, it was the declaration of a new imperial era, a centralized empire designed to last for 10,000 generations. He saw himself not merely as a king, but as the inaugurator of a new world order for China. Qin Shi Huang's reign was characterized by sweeping and radical reforms aimed at standardizing and consolidating his vast new empire. He abolished the old feudal system, dividing the country into commanderies and counties governed by centrally appointed officials. Crucially, he standardized the Chinese written script, ensuring that edicts and communications could be understood throughout the empire. He also standardized currency, weights, measures, and even the axle widths of carts to facilitate trade and transport on newly constructed imperial road networks. These measures, while often imposed with an iron fist, were instrumental in forging a unified Chinese identity and administrative structure. The first emperor is also renowned for his monumental construction projects, achievements of incredible scale and ambition, but also built at an immense human cost. He ordered the connection and extension of existing fortifications to create the first iteration of what would become the Great Wall of China, a massive defensive barrier against nomadic incursions from the north. Perhaps even more famously, he commissioned the construction of his own mausoleum, a subterranean city guarded by the life-size terracotta army. Thousands of unique clay soldiers' chariots and horses intended to protect him in the afterlife. These projects showcased the immense power of the centralized state, but also led to widespread suffering and resentment among the populace. However, Qin Shi Huang's pursuit of order and unity often tipped into tyranny. He ruthlessly suppressed all forms of dissent, particularly from Confucian scholars who criticized his legalist policies. This culminated in the infamous burning of books and burying of scholars, an attempt to eradicate opposing ideologies and control thought. Obsessed with achieving immortality, he dispatched expeditions in search of elixirs of life and consulted with mystics and alchemists. Despite his efforts, he died in 210 BCE, and his dynasty, intended to last for millennia, collapsed just a few years later. Yet, his legacy is undeniable. He laid the institutional foundations for a unified Chinese state that has endured in various forms for over 2,000 years. We now journey to early medieval Europe, a period often characterized as the Dark Ages following the collapse of the Western Roman Empire. The continent was fragmented, a mosaic of warring barbarian kingdoms with learning and centralized authority in steep decline. Into this world stepped Charles, son of Pepin the Short, king of the Franks. Later known as Charlemagne, or Charles the Great, he would become one of the most significant figures in European history. A warrior king who sought to restore order, expand Christianity, and revive the ideal of a unified Roman Empire in the West. His Carolingian dynasty would leave an indelible mark on the nascent European civilization. Charlemagne was a relentless military campaigner. For over 4 decades, he waged war almost continuously, expanding the Frankish kingdom in all directions. He conquered the Lombards in Italy, incorporating their kingdom into his own. He fought long and brutal wars against the pagan Saxons in the north, forcibly converting them to Christianity. He pushed back Muslim encroachments in Spain, establishing the Spanish March as a buffer zone, and he defeated the Avars in the east, seizing their vast treasures. His military prowess wasn't just about conquest, it was about creating a vast, Christianized realm, a new imperium that could offer stability in a turbulent world. The culmination of his efforts and a defining moment in European history occurred on Christmas Day, 800 AD. While praying in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne as Emperor of the Romans. This act was laden with symbolism. It sought to resurrect the authority and prestige of the Western Roman Empire, which had lain dormant for over 3 centuries. It also cemented the powerful alliance between the Frankish monarchy and the papacy, a relationship that would shape the political and religious landscape of Europe for centuries to come, establishing the concept of a divinely sanctioned Christian emperor in the West. Beyond his military achievements, Charlemagne was a dedicated patron of learning and the arts, sparking what historians call the Carolingian Renaissance. Concerned by the decline in literacy and the corruption of sacred texts, he gathered scholars from across Europe to his court at Aachen. He established schools in monasteries and cathedrals, promoted the copying and preservation of classical Latin manuscripts, saving many from being lost forever, and encouraged the development of a clearer, standardized script known as the Carolingian minuscule, the ancestor of our modern lowercase letters. This revival of learning helped to preserve and transmit the heritage of classical antiquity. Charlemagne also implemented administrative reforms to govern his vast empire, appointing counts to manage local territories and missi dominici, envoys of the Lord, to oversee their conduct and ensure justice. However, his empire, forged largely by his personal dynamism, proved difficult to maintain after his death in 814. His grandsons eventually divided it through the Treaty of Verdun in 843, laying the groundwork for the future kingdoms of France and Germany. Nevertheless, Charlemagne's legacy as the Pater Europae, Father of Europe, endures. He shaped the political geography, fostered a common Christian identity, and laid crucial cultural foundations for Western civilization. Our journey now takes us to the Indian subcontinent in the 3rd century BCE, to the Mauryan Empire, one of the largest and most powerful empires of its time. Here we encounter Ashoka, grandson of the empire's founder, Chandragupta Maurya. Ashoka inherited a vast domain, and in his early reign he, like many emperors before and after him, sought to expand it further through military conquest. Historical accounts suggest he was a formidable and perhaps even ruthless ruler in these initial years, focused on consolidating and extending his power across the Indian landmass, upholding the imperial traditions of his dynasty. A pivotal moment in Ashoka's life, and indeed in the history of Buddhism, was the Kalinga War. Kalinga, a prosperous kingdom on the eastern coast of India, resisted Mauryan subjugation. The ensuing conflict was horrific, resulting in immense bloodshed and suffering, hundreds of thousands killed, deported, or left to perish. Witnessing the devastation firsthand, Ashoka was struck with profound remorse and a deep spiritual crisis. This was not just a fleeting regret, it was a transformative experience that led him to renounce aggressive warfare and embrace the teachings of Buddhism, with its emphasis on non-violence, ahimsa, compassion and moral righteousness. Following his conversion, Ashoka dedicated his reign to the propagation of Dharma, a Prakrit form of the Sanskrit Dharma. This Dharma was not a narrow sectarian doctrine, but a universal moral code emphasizing tolerance, respect for all living beings, obedience to parents, generosity towards ascetics and Brahmins, and humane treatment of servants. He inscribed his edicts on pillars and rock surfaces throughout his vast empire, using local languages so his message could be widely understood. These edicts are remarkable historical documents, providing insights into his policies and his vision for a just and compassionate society, ruled not by the sword, but by moral suasion. Ashoka became a fervent patron of Buddhism. He is credited with building thousands of stupas, hemispherical mounds containing Buddhist relics, and viharas, monasteries, across India. More significantly, he actively supported the spread of Buddhism beyond India's borders. He dispatched missionaries, including his own son Mahinda and daughter Sanghamita, who traditionally went to Sri Lanka, to various parts of Asia, including Southeast Asia, and possibly even to Hellenistic kingdoms in the West. His efforts were instrumental in transforming Buddhism from a relatively small Indian sect into a major world religion, a cosmic gift of philosophy and peace to millions. Beyond his religious endeavors, Ashoka's administration focused on public welfare. He established hospitals for both humans and animals, planted shade trees along roads, dug wells, and built rest houses for travelers. He sought to create a more just and equitable society, urging his officials to be fair and accessible. While his empire began to decline after his death, Ashoka's legacy as a benevolent ruler and a champion of peace and tolerance is extraordinary. His transformation from a fierce conqueror to an apostle of nonviolence offers a powerful counter-narrative to the often bloody sagas of empire building, a testament to the profound impact of ethical leadership on the grand stage of history. So we return to Europe, specifically to 17th and early 18th century France, to witness the reign of King Louis XIV, famously known as the Sun King. His reign, spanning an incredible 72 years, is one of the longest recorded for any monarch of a sovereign country in European history, and it represents the epitome of absolute monarchy in Europe. Ascending to the throne as a child, his early years were marked by the Fronde, a series of civil wars that deeply impressed upon him the need for royal authority to be undisputed and centralized. His famous, though perhaps apocryphal, declaration, L'État, c'est moi, or I am the state, perfectly encapsulates his political philosophy. Louis XIV systematically consolidated royal power, diminishing the influence of the nobility and strengthening the central administration of the French state. He excluded the great nobles from his royal council, relying instead on skilled ministers chosen from the bourgeoisie, such as Jean-Baptiste Colbert, his brilliant finance minister who implemented mercantilist policies to enrich France. The king became the undisputed center of all political life, with every aspect of governance ultimately flowing from his will. This centralization allowed for unprecedented control over the nation's resources, military and cultural life, making France the dominant power in Europe for a significant period. The most potent symbol of Louis XIV's power and glory was the magnificent Palace of Versailles. Originally a modest hunting lodge, he transformed it into an opulent seat of government and a dazzling stage for court life. By compelling the high nobility to reside at Versailles for significant parts of the year, Louis could keep a close watch on them, distracting them with elaborate rituals, entertainments, and petty rivalries for royal favor, thus neutralizing their potential to challenge his authority. Versailles became the envy of Europe, a glittering symbol of French cultural and political supremacy, its art, architecture, and etiquette imitated by courts across the continent. In foreign policy, Louis XIV pursued an aggressive agenda aimed at expanding French territory and influence. He engaged in a series of major wars, including the Franco-Dutch War, the War of the League of Augsburg, and the War of the Spanish Succession. While these conflicts initially brought territorial gains and enhanced French prestige, they also placed an enormous financial burden on the French populace and eventually united other European powers against him. His quest for gloire, or glory, often came at a high price, leading to widespread suffering and economic strain, particularly in the later years of his reign. Despite the costs of his wars, Louis XIV's reign is often referred to as Le Grand Siècle, or the Great Century, due to the extraordinary flourishing of French arts, literature, and science under his patronage. Figures like Molière, Racine, and Lully graced his court, and French became the lingua franca of diplomacy and high culture throughout Europe. However, his revocation of the Edict of Nantes in 1685, which had granted religious freedom to Huguenots or French Protestants, led to the exodus of skilled artisans and intellectuals, damaging the French economy and tarnishing his image abroad. His legacy is thus a complex one, a symbol of absolute power and cultural brilliance, but also of costly ambition and religious intolerance. Let us venture back to the 6th century BCE, to the ancient Near East, a region dominated by powerful empires like Media, Lydia, and Babylonia. It is here that Cyrus II, later known as Cyrus the Great, rose from relatively humble beginnings as the ruler of Anshan, a Persian vassal state, to become the founder of the Achaemenid Empire, the largest empire the world had ever seen at that point. His story is one of remarkable military acumen, strategic foresight, and, quite uniquely for his time, a policy of clemency and respect for conquered peoples that set him apart from many other ancient conquerors. Cyrus's conquests were swift and decisive. He first overthrew his Median overlord Astyages, uniting the Medes and Persians under his rule. He then turned his attention to the fabulously wealthy kingdom of Lydia in Asia Minor, ruled by King Croesus, defeating him and incorporating Lydia into his rapidly expanding domain. His most celebrated victory, however, was the conquest of Babylon in 539 BCE. Unlike many conquerors who would sack such a prize, Cyrus entered the city peacefully, presenting himself not as a foreign invader, but as a legitimate successor chosen by Babylon's own god Marduk. This approach was a masterstroke of political propaganda and statecraft. What truly distinguished Cyrus was his policy of governance. He understood that an empire built solely on force was inherently unstable. Instead, he practiced a remarkable degree of tolerance and respect for the diverse cultures, religions, and customs of the peoples he incorporated into his empire. He allowed local rulers to retain a measure of autonomy, patronized local deities, and generally avoided imposing Persian culture wholesale. The famous Cyrus Cylinder, an Akkadian cuneiform inscription, describes his peaceful conquest of Babylon and his policy of repatriating displaced peoples and restoring their temples, a testament to this enlightened approach to imperial administration. One of the most significant acts attributed to Cyrus, and one that cemented his benevolent image in history, particularly in Judeo-Christian tradition, was his decree allowing the Jewish exiles in Babylon to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. This ended nearly half a century of Babylonian captivity and earned him a place of honor in the Hebrew Bible, where he is referred to as a Messiah, an anointed one of God. This act was not merely a gesture of goodwill, it was consistent with his broader policy of fostering loyalty among subject peoples by respecting their traditions and allowing them a degree of self-determination within the imperial framework. Cyrus the Great's legacy is profound. He laid the foundations for an empire that would endure for over 2 centuries, stretching from the Indus Valley to southeastern Europe and Egypt. His administrative innovations, such as the satrapy system, provinces governed by satraps, and his emphasis on communication, the royal road, and a standardized currency, created a stable and prosperous realm. More than just a conqueror, Cyrus is remembered as a just and humane ruler, a model of kingship that influenced later Greek thinkers like Xenophon, whose is a romanticized biography that presents Cyrus as an ideal monarch. He demonstrated that an empire could be built not just on might, but also on wisdom and magnanimity. We now journey to 16th century India, a land of immense diversity in culture, religion and language. Here we encounter Jalaluddin Muhammad Akbar, the 3rd emperor of the Mughal dynasty. Akbar ascended to the throne at the tender age of 13, inheriting a small and precarious kingdom. His early years were guided by his regent, Bairam Khan, but Akbar soon asserted his own authority, demonstrating a prodigious talent for both military leadership and statecraft that would enable him to transform the Mughal state into a vast, stable and prosperous empire encompassing most of the Indian subcontinent. Akbar was a brilliant military strategist and a fearless warrior. He personally led his armies in numerous campaigns, expanding Mughal territories through a combination of conquest and shrewd diplomacy. He subdued rebellious Afghan chieftains, conquered the powerful Rajput kingdoms, often through strategic alliances including marriage, and extended Mughal dominion over Gujarat, Bengal, Kashmir and parts of the Deccan. His military successes were not just about the territorial gain, they were about creating a unified and secure empire, bringing diverse regions under a single effective administration. He understood the importance of integrating conquered rulers into the imperial system. However, Akbar's greatness extends far beyond his military achievements. He is renowned for his policy of religious tolerance, known as Sulh Kul, or peace with all. In a deeply religious and often fractious society, Akbar sought to foster understanding and harmony among different faiths. He abolished the jizya, a poll tax traditionally levied on non-Muslims, and he invited scholars, theologians and mystics from various religions, Islam, Hinduism, Jainism, Christianity, Zoroastrianism, to his court for discussions and debates in his Ibadat Khana, house of worship. He even attempted to promote a syncretic spiritual movement called Din-i Ilahi, reflecting his eclectic spiritual curiosity. Administratively, Akbar was a visionary reformer. He, with the help of able ministers like Toda Mal, implemented a sophisticated land revenue system, the Dasala system, that was based on accurate land measurement and average crop yields, ensuring a more equitable and stable income for the state while protecting peasants from excessive demands. He reorganized the military and civil administration, creating a Mansabdari system that ranked officials and determined their responsibilities and remuneration. These reforms contributed significantly to the efficiency, stability and longevity of the Mughal Empire, creating an environment where art and culture could flourish. Akbar was also a great patron of art, architecture and literature. His reign witnessed a remarkable fusion of Persian, Central Asian and Indian artistic traditions, leading to the development of a distinct Mughal style in painting, exemplified by intricate miniatures and architecture with masterpieces like Fatehpur Sikri. He commissioned translations of Sanskrit classics into Persian and fostered a vibrant intellectual atmosphere at his court. Akbar's legacy is that of a unifier, a wise administrator, and a ruler who, despite being an absolute monarch, genuinely sought the welfare of his diverse subjects and promoted a culture of pluralism, leaving an indelible mark on the history and identity of India. Our final emperor in this grand survey is a figure who stands at a pivotal juncture in Western history, Augustus Caesar, the first Roman emperor. Born Gaius Octavius, later known as Octavian, he was the grandnephew and adopted son of Julius Caesar. Following Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Rome was plunged into a series of brutal civil wars. Octavian, though young and initially underestimated, proved to be a master political strategist and a capable military leader, navigating the treacherous political currents and ultimately emerging as the sole ruler of the Roman world. It was a transformation that would forever change Rome. Octavian's path to supreme power was paved with ruthless ambition and calculated alliances, most notably the Second Triumvirate with Mark Antony and Lepidus, which eventually fractured. His decisive naval victory over Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE effectively ended the civil wars and left him as the undisputed master of Rome. However, mindful of the fate of Julius Caesar and the deep-seated Roman aversion to monarchy, Octavian carefully crafted his position. He avoided the title of king, instead accumulating various republican offices and powers, presenting himself as the restorer of the Republic, not its destroyer. In 27 BCE, the Roman Senate granted him the honorific title Augustus, meaning revered or illustrious, along with the title Princeps, or first citizen. This marked the formal beginning of the Roman Empire and his reign as its first emperor. He meticulously established the Principate, a system where the emperor held ultimate authority while maintaining the outward forms and institutions of the Roman Republic. This delicate balance allowed him to consolidate power and lay the foundations for a new imperial order that would endure for centuries, a testament to his political genius and understanding of Roman sensibilities. Augustus's long reign ushered in an era of unprecedented peace and prosperity, known as the Pax Romana, the Roman peace. After decades of civil strife, the empire enjoyed relative stability, allowing for economic growth, cultural flourishing, and extensive public works. He reformed the military, creating a professional standing army loyal to the emperor. He reorganized provincial administration, improved the tax system, built roads, aqueducts, and temples, famously claiming he found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble, and even attempted moral reforms to restore traditional Roman virtues. This period saw a golden age of Latin literature with poets like Virgil, Horace, and Ovid. The legacy of Augustus is monumental. He transformed Rome from a chaotic and decaying republic into a stable and enduring empire, establishing a system of governance that, with modifications, lasted for nearly 500 years in the West and much longer in the East. He dramatically expanded the empire's borders, secured its frontiers, and fostered a sense of Roman identity and purpose. He was an architect of empire in the truest sense, creating not just a political entity but a civilization that would profoundly shape the future course of European history, law, language, and culture. His reign marks one of history's great turning points. And so, our journey through the lives of 10 of history's greatest empire builders comes to a close. From the youthful ambition of Alexander to the stabilizing genius of Augustus, from the unifying force of Qin Shi Huang to the tolerant vision of Akbar, each of these leaders in their own distinct era and through their unique methods profoundly reshaped the human story. Their legacies are complex, often a blend of awe-inspiring achievement and sobering human cost, creation and destruction, enlightenment and tyranny. They remind us that the currents of history are often driven by individuals of extraordinary will and vision. The stories of these emperors offer more than just a chronicle of conquests and reigns. They provide invaluable insights into the nature of power, the challenges of governance, the dynamics of cultural exchange, and the enduring human quest for order, meaning, and legacy. By studying their successes and failures, their innovations and their blind spots, we gain a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped our civilizations, and in many ways, continue to influence the world we inhabit today. Their empires may have risen and fallen like tides in the vast ocean of time, but their impact echoes still. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history's greatest empire builders. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating insights into the past. The tapestry of history is vast and ever unfolding, and by exploring its threads we come to better understand not only where we came from, but perhaps where we are going. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep marveling at the incredible saga of humanity.